The center of this film is greed. You don't just see it in the quest for Confederate gold by Blondie, Angel Eyes, and Tuco. There are signs of it everywhere. In the hotel manager talking about how he'll be glad to get the Northerners in town for the money they'll bring in, Bill Carson appealing to Tuco's greed for a single sip of water, the gang of cutthroats who are systematically robbing the Confederate prisoners of their goods. Set up against the harsh desert backdrop, it exposes the ultimate folly of that greed, the best symbol of it perhaps being the cemetery where the gold is buried. A little over a decade before the Reagan era of greed is healthy, greed is good, this film provides the ultimate rebuttal to that argument. Greed has gotten just as many men killed, if not more, than patriotism ever did. Such a subtext makes the good, the bad, and the ugly, the cinematic child of John Huston's Treasure of the Sierra Madre, and the precursor to Oliver Stone's Wall Street. As great as Leone, Eastwood, Van Cleef, and Wallach are, there is one member of this team that pushes this film into the status of greatness: score writer Ennio Morricone. Not only does he manage to write one of the most recognized themed tunes on the planet, he also adds the extra tension needed to convey the drama with the necessary oomph, the best examples being in Blondie's tortuous walk across the desert, Tuco's frantic search through the cemetery, my personal favorite and so good that LucasArts did a slowed-down version of it for their Western shooter, Outlaws, and, of course, the final three-way shootout. He still composes scores for many other films to this day, I've been told. A good example of his most recent work would be the 1990 version of Hamlet, starring Mel Gibson and directed by Franco Zeffirelli. But I truly doubt that he'll ever be able to top the legendary work he did here. While I have given some pretty long reviews to Clint Eastwood's westerns, particularly The Wonderful Fistful of Dollars and For a Few Dollars More, I will only give a brief review of this movie because there are so many reviews already. I doubt if my pontificating will actually influence many people. After all, this is widely seen as one of the greatest westerns ever made, and since I liked it immensely, there isn't much need to say more. Well, there are actually a few westerns I liked a bit more. I am a huge fan of The Big Country. But, when it comes to style, originality and the epic proportions of this film, none can match it, though Once Upon a Time in the West comes very, very close. The acting and script are just fine and the music is intensely weird but effective. Of all the films I have seen with music by Ennio Morricone, this is his most intense and strangest. And it works perfectly in this film, but I also appreciate much of his more restrained work in other films and would never want all westerns to have such distinctive and bizarre music as in The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. It would just lose its magic and might even tend to overwhelm the film. The only negatives about this film are the title, and it is a pretty violent film that the little ones probably shouldn't watch. There is a lot of blood and violence and you do get to see Eli Wallach's butt. As for the title, sure, Lee Van Cleef was truly bad, and Eli Wallach was ugly, but Clint is the good. Well, his character was far from good, but of course, who would like the title to be the kinda good, the bad and the ugly? Not to be missed by any serious fan or the genre. Spoilers herein. This film revolves around threes of various types and pairings among those threes. The grouping of three that is of interest to me are the cinematic influences behind this film: Hollywood westerns, Italian iconic painting, Japanese starkness in representation. These Italian westerns are important. Most movies are about other movies, but this one affected much of what followed. The Western vocabulary was mature and popular well before movies, and with the detective story drove the first revolution in modern mass publishing. Its simple abstractions were converted to film, then radio and TV, without change. The Boy Scout cowboy in the usually white hat, often singing. In fact, the modern pop country music borrows from this simple vocabulary in reference to the "genuine." But all that, including the country music bit, is pretty flat, stupid and dull. Italian cinema is based on a similar set of national icons, specifically religious icons. It is a more visual, visceral painterly vocabulary. Equally simple in stereotypes, but instead there are religiously based connections that give the impression of depth. Symbology is expected, even demanded. To this add post-war notions of irony which permeated European popular art. So the good guy was still good, but in a twisted way, the twist shifting according to the chaos he encountered. In the US, John Ford was creating soft lush panoramas that would subliminally inspire a generation of environmentally aware viewers, but something more important came rushing in from Japan: Kurosawa. His films are abstract, directly evolved from Japanese watercolor narratives. These are also lush and beautiful, but not soft, instead dusty, gritty, sometimes cruel. This world is not placid, merely a machine to test color and honor. In the Eastwood, Leone films, these three influences were deliberately unfolded. And the whole world's visual vocabulary shifted. In the US, we have since reinvented a part of our national character to ally with these images. America's love affair with guns is a recent phenomenon. How powerful cinema can be. This film may be recommended by others for entertainment value or something similar. That's fine, but I think it should be seen to help you understand the default world you are handed, so that you can put it into perspective, to see that much of it is man-made. It's a story of three people on the run, from themselves, from poverty and from the gun, all chasing golden riches. In their saddle-weary breeches, one-upmanship prevents being outdone. Angel Eyes is a hardened mercenary, always finishes a job, he won't miscarry, has his sights set on a bounty, buried in a cemetery, but two others will become adversaries. Tuco is a cunning, cagey outlaw, never satisfied, wanting a few dollars more, devious and double-crossing, scornful, sneering, often scoffing, wears a noose more than he'd like, below his jaw. Blondie plays it cool most of the time, makes his living freeing Tuco for his crimes, with his cigar and his poncho. He's an independent honcho, though a walk around the desert leaves him bereft. Three outstanding performances in a film that stands the test of time and just gets better and better.